Hello everybody, and welcome back to Cam Critiques. In today's video, I'll be ranking just about every single first-party release available on the Nintendo Switch. There are technically a few I haven't played and thus can't rank. Nothing too major though. Just the Labo Robot and Vehicle kits, the Pokemon mobile stuff, Kirby Fighters 2, Flip Wars, the Stretchers, the Fire Emblem NES re-release, Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, the 2 Fitness Boxing games, the 2 Dragon Quest Builders games, Go Vacation, the latest Brain Age, which is yet to release in my country along with Karaoke Joy Sound, Pikmin 3 Deluxe, Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore, Good Job, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, and Daemon X Machina. I also never played Snipperclips Plus, but I played the original, so I'll just be ranking that. Aside from those few titles though, I've played every other first-party release. That is a whopping 48 Nintendo Switch games. I'll be going through each one in release order and placing them on a tier list, with ordered tiers of course. This could get long, so let's get started by looking at the releases from 2017. So first off is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Yeah, this is a top of S rank. The Switch peaked day one with the game also on Wii U. Breath of the Wild has the best open world you can find in any game. Exploration is incredible, there are so many fun things to discover and puzzles to solve in interesting ways. The art style is great, the abilities are really fun to mess with, there's nothing quite like it. This might be my favorite game ever made, you should definitely pick this one up. Next up is 1-2 Switch. The other major Switch title goes straight to F tier. This game is extremely shallow and has a shockingly small amount of content. You can experience everything it has to offer in 30 minutes, and only about 5 to 10 of those minutes are enjoyable. This shouldn't have been $50. $5 would still be too much. I will say though, there are some worse games than this. I enjoyed messing around with it, doing things like optimizing the milking games where I could consistently get the max score. Don't buy this game though, it's a waste of money. And now, Snipperclips. This game was a fun time at launch, I'm going to put it in B tier. It's got a clever concept for a puzzle game along with fun puzzles and a cute art style, but not much beyond that. This game didn't particularly stick with me, but I'm happy I bought it and I'd recommend it. Next is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I guess this is an S tier title too, though definitely behind Breath of the Wild. I wish it added more to the base game, but the base game and DLC were already amazing. The new battle mode is great too. It's a solid port, definitely worth buying if you didn't own it on Wii U, and maybe worth buying even if you did. And now I've got ARMS. This goes to D tier. It's a big step up from 1-2 Switch, but this game still sucks. It's got an awesome aesthetic and neat music, but very little content and awful core gameplay. Fighting in this game, which is literally all you can do, just isn't fun. The controls are awkward and don't feel responsive, and the balancing is poor. I can't recommend this game to anyone, just buy Smash if you want a wacky fighting game. Next up is Splatoon 2. I'll put Splatoon 2 in A tier. The aesthetic and concept of Splatoon are just so cool, and the main game mode is a lot of fun too. The story mode here is also enjoyable for one playthrough. The game does get pretty repetitive pretty fast though, and I don't like how one of the best modes, Salmon Run, is literally not playable most of the time. Also the ranked mode kinda sucks. But this game is definitely worth picking up, you'll get a good amount of fun out of it. And now we have Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I'm pretty sure this was actually published by Ubisoft in my country, but it's a Mario game so I'll link it anyway. This game goes in A tier, below Splatoon 2 though. I'm still shocked by how good this game is. It's a bizarre crossover, and honestly I don't think it works that well. The Rabbids are still annoying here, most of the story and cutscenes are obnoxious, but the core gameplay is really enjoyable. The very blatantly XCOM inspired combat is super fun here and very well executed with lots of neat twists, and the exploration is surprisingly good. Searching for collectibles is fun and the environments are beautiful. It's also got a great soundtrack. It's a really enjoyable time, definitely worth picking up, especially since it's on sale so frequently. Next is Pokken Tournament Deluxe. Yeah, I'll put this one in D tier, above ARMS though. I never really liked Pokken. The aesthetic is bland and the combat is just dumbed down Tekken. This is also pretty bad as a port, not a lot of substantial stuff was added and it still cost $60, which is more than the base game should have ever been. You probably shouldn't pick this one up. Now we've got Fire Emblem Warriors. I guess I'll put this one in C tier, right in the middle. I mostly enjoyed wasting time with this game I guess, but it is pretty basic. It also doesn't nail the fan service like one of these games really should, it really focuses too much on the 3DS types. Maybe pick this one up if you're a relatively new Fire Emblem fan and it's on sale. Next up is Super Mario Odyssey. This one goes in S tier, right below Breath of the Wild. This is the best Switch exclusive and one of the best Mario titles. The visuals and art style are amazing, the core gameplay is super fun and the movement is simply unmatched. You have so many fun options of getting around. The seal ceiling feels infinitely high. I think this is my most replayed game on Switch, it never gets old and I really enjoyed 100% completing it the weekend it came out. You should definitely buy this game. And now I've got Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I'll put this one in A tier, right at the top. I actually wasn't the biggest fan of the original Xenoblade when I first tried it, so this pleasantly surprised me. The soundtrack is absolutely incredible, the combat is amazing when you get further into the game, the aesthetic is great, though the visuals are a bit unpolished, and the story is interesting, though the anime tropes and random skill checks are really annoying. Definitely worth playing if you like JRPGs though. Now it's time to move on to 2018. Next up is Bayonetta 1 and 2. I'll put this in S tier above Mario Kart. I've loved the Bayonetta games for a long time, and these ports are pretty solid. They both hold up well, with the first game having deeper combat and the second having a much stronger aesthetic. These are still the only character action games to ever come close to Devil May Cry in my opinion, and I'd highly recommend both of them. This bundle probably shouldn't have been $60 though, the same price it was on Wii U in 2014, but that's sadly the case for pretty much every port on this list. Next is Kirby Star Allies. This is a hard one to rank. I think I'll put it at the very top of C tier. I love the core Kirby games, and the movement and aesthetics here are awesome. I enjoyed 100% completing this back when it came out, but it is very short and really lacks variety. It's pretty much the most generic Kirby game imaginable. There's basically no reason to play this if you've played any mainline Kirby since like Superstar on the SNES, unless you really are fine with more generic Kirby levels and nothing else. And now I've got the Nintendo Labo Variety Kit. This is barely a game, and it's kind of hard to rank as a result, but I guess I'll put it above Pokken and D tier. It's a fun novelty and nothing more. I guess I had a somewhat enjoyable 4 hours playing with cardboard, but it was definitely not worth $70. Now I've got Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. I'll put this one right below Star Allies in C tier. I technically don't own the Switch version myself, but I've played the original and the 3DS version to completion, and played some co-op with the Switch version, so I think I can rank it pretty fairly. This is another time waster like Fire Emblem Warriors, but it's got much better fan service. I personally really enjoyed playing as characters like Tingle and Agatha. This is worth it if you're a big Zelda fan with time to kill. Next is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. This goes in S tier right below Odyssey. I adore Tropical Freeze, it's got incredible movement and level design and a great aesthetic. This is one of the best 2D platformers ever made. It might be above Super Mario Odyssey if it wasn't a port that was released 4 years after the original and was initially sold for a higher price. That is ridiculous and I can't overlook that. But still, you should absolutely give Tropical Freeze a try, it's a masterpiece. And now I've got Sushi Striker The Way of Sushito. This game bombed, and for good reason. I'll put it in D tier below Pokken. It's a very simple puzzle game that controls poorly and looks horrible on Switch. It gets old fast and really shouldn't have been $50. I wouldn't recommend this one to anybody. If you want a puzzle game, just buy Puyo Puyo Tetris. Next is Mario Tennis Aces. This one also goes in D tier, though above Pokken. It also lacks content and a simple repetitive gameplay, but at least it's not particularly ugly. Still not worth picking up though. Now I've got Octopath Traveler. I really enjoyed this one, I'll put it in A tier right below Splatoon. It's got gorgeous visuals, an incredible soundtrack, great combat, and a mostly interesting story, though it is held back by a jarring lack of character interaction. Though still, I'd recommend this game to any JRPG fan. Next is Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. I haven't played the Switch version, but I did beat it on Wii U, and this was like a pretty direct port, so I think I can rank it. I'll also put it in A tier, below Octopath. This is one of my favorite Mario spin-offs. It's got a unique charm and lots of really fun and clever puzzles. It also has a joyful soundtrack and great vibrant visuals. Now I do wish the soundtrack had more variety, and I wish the game was a bit longer, but I'd still recommend the game to most Switch users. And now I've got Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna, the Golden Country. I'll put this one in A tier too, right below the original Xenoblade 2. It's got great visuals, an interesting story, fun combat, and a great soundtrack just like the base game, though it's held back by its smaller scope. The soundtrack also isn't quite as good as the base game, nor is the combat, but still, if you like Xenoblade 2, you'll like Torna. Next is Super Mario Party. I'm putting this one in F tier, below 1-2 Switch. Yes, it's that bad. This game is devoid of any enjoyment whatsoever. The boards are all terrible, the core design behind them is terrible, they're dreadfully boring to move around on and look at, and the minigames aren't great either. There's almost no content too. This game is worse than Mario Party 10. I would strongly advise against picking up this title. Now I've got the World Ends With You Final Remix. I really hate placing this game where I'm placing it. I adore the original, but this is going in D tier, above Mario Tennis. The combat is just so much worse than it is in the DS version. The art is a downgrade too, and the controls are awful. The new content at the end is uninteresting. This game isn't worth playing at all when the DS game exists. But you should absolutely play that version, it's great. Next is Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. I guess I'll put this one at the top of D tier. I used to love Pokemon, but the Switch games have consistently disappointed me. The visuals are bland, the tactile motion controls are annoying, it's too easy, it's just a worse version of Fire Red and Leaf Green. There's really no reason to play this game, I would not recommend it. Now I've got Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'll put this one in A tier, right below Xenoblade 2. This is my most played Switch game, and when it works, it really works, but I just can't put it in S tier when so much of the game is lackluster. Playing locally with friends is great, but the single player mode is very boring and repetitive, and the online modes are plagued by awful matchmaking and connection issues. It also lacked new content at launch in my opinion. I didn't like that I could count the number of new stages on one hand, but at its core, this is one of the best local multiplayer games ever made. It's definitely worth picking up if you have any friends who'd be interested in playing. Now, on to 2019. Next is New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. I'll put this one in B tier, above Snipperclips. Nintendo really did run this sub-series into the ground pretty fast, This is probably the best new Super Mario Bros. Game. I really wish the art style and soundtrack were different. They were never great to begin with, but the movement still feels pretty good and the level design is better than ever. The new power-ups like the acorn and kind of the baby Yoshis are fun to use too. It's a solid game, but it's not a must-buy. And now I've got Tetris 99. This one is an A tier, right below Splatoon 2. It's very simplistic and I wish it had some more variety, but the core idea is very strong. I already love Tetris, and this game made me realize I might actually like Battle Royales. Winning is super satisfying, and being in the final 10 is crazy tension. You should definitely give this a shot if you have Nintendo Switch Online. Next is Yoshi's Crafted World. I imagine this will be one of my more controversial placements. I'm putting this at the very bottom of the list, below Super Mario Party in F tier. This game is physically painful to play. Staring at the blurry graphics while the same bad repetitive song plays in every single level gives me a horrible headache without fail. Even beyond that, the level design is largely uninteresting and the movement feels terrible. You feel like you're moving through molasses at all times. I like what they went with for the art style, but it's held back severely by its low resolution. This game fails on every level. I thought it'd be hard for future Yoshi games to go below Yoshi's Story and Yoshi's New Island, but Goodfeel sadly found a way. Now I've got the Nintendo Labo VR kit. I put this at the bottom of C tier. This is kind of a neat novelty for a few minutes. Turning Carbon into a functional VR headset for your Switch is pretty cool, but it's not even unheard of for phones. And after those few minutes, there's really nothing to do. And you'll probably be feeling pretty nauseous. I know I was. At least I only lost $40 to this time, but it was still way too much. I wouldn't really recommend this to anyone. Next is Box Boy plus Box Girl. I'll put this in B tier, right above Snipper Clips. I've been a fan of the Box Boy games since they started on 3DS, and this one continues to be just as good. They're nothing too profound or complex, but they're fun little puzzle platformers that are very charming. If you like how laboratory charm and puzzle games like Pushmo or Snipper Clips, this is definitely worth picking up. And now I've got Cadence of Hyrule. I'll put this one in B tier right above Box Boy. I'm a big Zelda fan and I enjoyed Crypt of the NecroDancer, so I was excited for this one, and it mostly delivered. The soundtrack is great and I love the art style, and the core Crypt of the NecroDancer gameplay still holds up. But I wish they blended it with Zelda more cleverly. There are no real puzzles or anything, and the open map doesn't lend itself to the gameplay nearly as well as the randomly generated floors of the original. This is still a fun time if you're a Zelda fan though. Next is Super Mario Maker 2. I'll put this one in C tier above Kirby. I really wanted to like this game more than I did, but it was very disappointing. The UI is not well adapted to the controller of the Switch at all. It would still work far better with the Wii U gamepad. The new additions are oddly restricted in some odd ways that made lots of levels I envisioned based on trailers actually impossible to create. The physics feel wonky with bad hitboxes and sluggish movement, definitely not as tight as any real Mario games or even the original Mario Maker. The single player content is generic and boring, and the online doesn't work at all. Some of the levels you can find are great, and that carries the game a decently long way, but everything that Nintendo actually did with it was lackluster. I'm not sure I'd recommend this one to anybody. Now I've got Fire Emblem Three Houses. I'll put this one at the bottom of S tier. I've loved Fire Emblem since I played Path of Radiance back near when it came out, and I was pretty excited for its return to home console. But I was worried when I first saw Three Houses. I didn't like the weird school setup, and the graphics looked horrible. I was worried the story would be bad again too, maintaining the whole three paths sim. And those worries weren't unfounded, they all ended up coming true. But I didn't expect the character customization to be so addictive, and the characters to be so likable in general. The loop of doing fantastic strategy gameplay, then talking to the characters in the monastery and building up their skills, then using those skills in fantastic strategy gameplay, and so on, is super satisfying and addictive. This game more than makes up for its flaws, and is definitely worth a purchase for RPG fans. Next is Astral Chain. This game goes to the bottom of D tier. I hate this game with a passion. I love Platinum, so I was very excited for it, and I've never been more disappointed. The majority of this game is just terrible filler content. I'm talking minigame chapters where I got soft locked and had to restart twice. Underground levels where you have to limp through fog for hours. There is one chapter that is, I kid you not, a half-baked mandatory stealth section, an overly long sewer level, and an escort mission, all at the same time. I don't know what was going through the minds of the developers who made this. I don't know what went wrong. The story is also terrible, the protagonist absolutely should not be silent and no motivations make sense, and the combat is super shallow and way too easy. The soundtrack has a few gems, but is mostly just generic and annoying. It's only not F tier because the visual style is really cool and some of the cutscenes are enjoyable. Now I've got The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. This one's a bit hard to rank, I guess I'll put it at the top of B tier. The original game is great and the new art style is great. The soundtrack is also amazing. But there are no worthwhile gameplay additions and some really odd performance issues. They are basically selling a Game Boy game for $60. Now it looks great and is one of the best Game Boy games, but it's still pretty hard to recommend. Maybe get it on sale if you're a big Zelda fan, or if you haven't played the original and somehow have no other way of getting a hold of it. Next is Dragon Quest XI-S, Echoes of an Elusive Age, Definitive Edition. I actually haven't technically played this one, but I did play the original on PS4 back when it first came out, and I doubt my ranking would change based on what I've seen from this Switch version. I'll put this game in S tier right below Tropical Freeze. This is one of the best RPGs I've ever played. The world is beautiful and a joy to explore. The towns are plentiful, varied, rich in detail and text, and all super fun to visit. The combat is simple but well executed and satisfying. The characters and story are interesting. This game has totally unmatched charm. The art style is amazing. Yes, the soundtrack sucks, but that's easy to overlook. This is a must-play title. Now I've got Ring Fit Adventure. I'll put this game in D tier above Sushi Striker. I know some people like this game a lot, but I was not a fan. They tried to gamify exercising by making it into an RPG, but its RPG elements are all skin deep. This game has no interesting progression, story, combat, etc. You are just exercising. At least the graphics are nice, but this game, and I hesitate to even call it that, is definitely not worth $80. Next is Luigi's Mansion 3. I'll throw this one at the very bottom of B tier. This game is very charming, the graphics and animations are incredible and totally unmatched on Switch. But I thought a lot of the puzzles were pretty poorly designed. Some took too long, others had weird solutions that felt kind of arbitrary. Some of them had elements that reacted to your actions that just weren't actually related to the solution at all, which really frustrated me. This is maybe worth it on sale though, it's a decent time overall. Now Pokemon Sword and Shield. These go to the bottom of C tier, I guess. The core Pokemon gameplay loop is still there and still fun, but these games are rough. The graphics are very ugly, the story is probably the worst I've seen in a game, it's embarrassing. There are no dungeons, the wild areas are boring, it's too easy throughout the whole experience, even the post-game. The soundtrack is nice at times, but even that pales in comparison to basically every other entry from the past 20 years. I like what they went for with the art style, and the Pokemon designs are nice, but this game, like the state of Pokemon in general, is just kind of sad. Now into 2020, the last year I'll be looking at. Next is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX. I'll put this in C tier right above Fire Emblem Warriors. It's an alright time. Gameplay wise it's pretty much the same as the original, but it's got an interesting enough new art style and soundtrack. This really should not be $60 though. It is clearly a lower budget title and content wise practically the same as a Game Boy Advance game. I also always thought Mystery Dungeon games were kind of bland and forgettable, but I know they have their niche. Still, I'd recommend maybe getting the Chocobo one if you really want a Mystery Dungeon on Switch. Now I've got Animal Crossing New Horizons. I don't want to say too much about this one here as I've got a video about it in the works right now. So I'll simply rank it, without further explanation. Check back in a few weeks to hear more. But for now, this goes in C tier, above Hyrule Warriors. Next is Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I'll put this in A tier, behind Splatoon 2. The original Xenoblade has always been my least favorite, and this re-release doesn't do enough to change that. The story is definitely the best in the series, but the combat is a little too simple, the pacing is extremely odd, and the environments are way too big given your limited movement abilities. Lots of this game is just walking in a straight line through empty fields. The new expansion, Future Connected, is pretty disappointing too. It has worse characters, worse combat, and a bad, insignificant story. But looking at the environments and hearing about the characters and story of the base game is all great, and the soundtrack is incredible, so I'd still recommend it to any JRPG fan willing to put up with some flaws. Now I've got Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. I guess I'll put this one at the bottom of B tier. You're getting exactly what's advertised, nothing more, nothing less. If you want to play some classic board games, I guess this is a game for you. Next is Jump Rope Challenge. I'll put this at the top of F tier. I guess it's free, but the one gameplay mechanic, counting jumps, doesn't even function properly. It's extremely inaccurate. At least the art style is kinda charming, but this isn't even worth a free download. Paper Mario The Origami King goes to the top of B tier. It's a fun game with some major problems that have sadly plagued the series for a long time. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. If you want to hear more about this one, check out my review on this very channel. Now I've got Super Mario 3D All-Stars. This is the hardest to rank, I think. I'll put it in C tier, below Kirby. All of the games in this collection are great classics, but everything about this collection itself is upsetting. It's 3 old ports that are poorly emulated, plagued with weird graphical glitches and performance issues that are on average 18 years old, being sold for $60, only for a limited time. When collections like Kingdom Hearts' story so far and Metal Gear Solid The Legacy Collection exist, packed with way more games that are actually remastered, equally classic, and more recent, and sold for far less than MSRP, at launch and still today, I don't know how anyone could excuse 3D All-Stars. These games are all worth playing, but this collection just isn't worth it. Next is Part-Time UFO. I haven't played the Switch release for this one, but I did play the original mobile version. I'll put it at the bottom of B tier. It's got charming art and some fun, simple puzzles, though the puzzles aren't as good as those in Box Boy. If you don't have Box Boy, just get that, but if you're done and want more HAL Laboratory charm, this is worth a download. Finally, to bring this list to a close, we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. This goes in C tier below Fire Emblem Warriors. The story is terrible and way worse than what they advertise it as, which just makes it all the more disappointing, and the fan service is severely lacking. This is just a worse Hyrule Warriors with less content. But the visuals are notably better, and the soundtrack is still great. Maybe pick this one up if you're a big Breath of the Wild fan or if it ever goes on sale. And that does it for the ranking. Wow, that took a while. This is the finished tier list. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Check out some of my other content on this channel, like my top 10 games in 2020. Maybe even share it to others who might enjoy it. It's pretty hard to grow as a small channel on this platform. If you want to see additional updates about the channel, follow me on Twitter or Instagram, or join my Discord server, all linked in the description below. Thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day.